Hi, Mr. Sagar, and welcome to Decode. It's it's an absolute pleasure having you on board and talking to us this Friday evening.
Thank you so much, Kaushal. Great being here. Thanks to you and Urban Piper for having me here. And I hope we can code the decode in a significant manner during these lockdowns, which is more like openly closed and not really closed.
Yeah, so Decode is a series of podcasts where we've been talking to entrepreneurs from the F&B space, and we're thrilled to have you for the audience today, Mr. Sagar Daryani, founder of Wow Momo, which is truly a household name. I think all of us living in various cities have kind of come across the brand, and we're thrilled to have you here today. And it's a Friday evening when we're shooting this, so just curious, how has your day been? Can you tell me, what's a day in the life of a founder of a famous QSR company?
On a uh, in a normal day, in a normal scenario, it's more like waking up, playing with my pet dog Elsa, rather her waking me up. That's how it is. And doing a bit of workout and then get to work. Thankfully, being in the food business, lockdown or no lockdown, you have to be on the field. We are a front facing, customer facing kind of an industry. So get on the move, get to office. uh, you know uh, these days maximum time goes on Zoom calls, so a lot of time is being spent on Zoom. uh, Interact with your team, strategize, get something or the other going, have that hustle, be impulsive. And the QSR industry is all about that, right? Fast, 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 fast. So, like they say, it's survival of the quickest. So
Yeah.
be as quick as possible, be as agile as possible, and get going. But on a lighter note, it's a lot of fun. Lockdown has given us a bit of that breather, or that bit of that space, because it's been a rat race for all of us. So I think adverse time calls for being diverse, calls for being agile. I think it's made all of us reinvent our business models. So a fresher new outlook. I think it's very, very important to look at the positive side of things. So yeah, work till late. My day generally ends like by 11, but that's when my evening starts. So it's like about working hard and partying harder. For me, partying is more about spending time with friends, hanging out with them.
Yeah.
In normal times, in Calcutta, we have these dhabas which are like 24/7 open. So go and have chai, drive around the car, chill. Many of my friends are in the food sector, so they understand the pain points of being in the food business. Thankfully, they too get free by 10, 11 at night. So, I have company. But in a normal scenario, there's a lot of travel, literally living out of a suitcase. So traveling 20 days a month. So a lot of early morning flights, which is quite painful. But the good part is, having a lot of friends in every city. So, at least the nights are well taken care of with good food, trying out new stuff, new cuisines, new restaurants, and keeping the industry going. I think we all need to keep the industry going, need to consume, consume, and consume.
It's great to hear that. And, I'm glad that you shared both professional and personal life. We're shooting this at the beginning of June. It's been a crazy few months, right? Even 2021, if you think about it. So, how did 2021 start? Was it optimism? Because I think the cases were on the low. And how have the last couple of few weeks or months been for you?
So, we began this journey 12 years back, right? In 12 years, we had never seen losses, and the journey has been more like a Bollywood blockbuster, no looking back. It's been really outstanding, amazing, growing at a rapid pace. And then comes April 2020, when you're hit by your first month of P&L, which is in losses. Lockdown began in March 2020. You could not feel the impact in March because at least half of the month of March was still taken care of. But April was the first full month, where we saw mounting losses. The business had come down to 1/10 of what it originally was. So imagine your business coming down to 1/10. So many fixed costs to take care of. You have so many employees, their salaries, rentals, cost of running the business, administrative costs. So it was difficult. It was definitely very difficult. But then, like I said, adverse time calls for being diverse, calls for being agile. हमने यही कहा कि यार हाथ पे हाथ रख के बैठ के तो कुछ होगा नहीं. So I think in the month of April, we realized that, we are heading towards doomsday and we need to really do things differently. I think that's when in the lockdown, we began a new business line called Wow Momo Essentials during the last
Yeah.
lockdown, whereby, we were selling everything from eggs, milk, bread to potatoes, onion, tomatoes to
Are you
sanitary
guys still
pads.
doing that? I read a little bit
It
about
was
that.
a makeshift arrangement for the last lockdown. that kept us surviving because, we were able to spread our asset better. We were able to use the resources better. We had so many employees, who were there ready to come to the restaurants, but, had no work. So it was all about using using your resources better, using your delivery riders better, partnering with aggregators like Swiggy, Zomato, and, getting people delivered basic necessities, because during those times, I think it was the first lockdown, it was new for everyone. The likes of Big Basket, Grofers, even they were taking almost 3 to 4 days to serve, to deliver essentials to you. Or यहाँ पे हम garam momo serve कर रहे थे 45 minutes. So we said, how do we serve essentials in 45 minutes? So I think that new business model got us going. Obviously, it died its natural death on the 31st of July. But I think what it did to us, it gave us the belief as an organization that, we are ready to reinvent. We are ready to go back to basics. We are ready to be agile. And it also gave us that belief that, kuch bhi ho jaye, we are able to do things differently. At the same time, it made the team believe that there is some action happening, right?
Yeah.
So, out of sight is out of mind. At least we were not out of sight in front of the consumers, as well as not in front of our own team. Building that confidence among the team was very important. We took a very conscious call that, we will not do any job cuts. So for the month of March and April, we paid full salaries. From May onwards, we were very transparent with the team. We were upfront with them that, we will be doing pay cuts, but we will not do job cuts. So, the entire organization was willing to take the larger pain for the larger gain of the organization. We feel we're a big family and we need to support one another. And, any which ways, when it's lockdown, people don't have full expenses. People were not reporting to duty on a daily basis. We divided them into shifts of A and B. So, it was alternate day working for those who could come. We had to obviously arrange for our own public transport, our own carpool. So, those 3 months were very, very difficult. Business grew from 10% to maybe 30% of pre-COVID numbers. And gradually, when the unlocking happened from June, July onwards, we started seeing more traction, a lot of traction in delivery business. For us, it was more of impulse buy, and delivery QSR was never our forte. I mean, it was just a part of our business, just 1/4 of our business.
So was this the first time you thought that delivery could really be bigger than, what it had been to your
Absolutely,
business?
because it was the only means of survival, right? So delivery became 100% of your business for a long, long time, right? So you had to find means of, how do you reinvent this business model? How do you focus more on getting more traction, more throughput, more loyalty through delivery? Yeah. And, Momo as a product has never been a very delivery-friendly product. It's supposed to be had hot and steamed, so how do you give that consumer that experience of it being a very delivery-friendly product so that the consumer's experience at his home, at his doorstep is at par with what you get at the restaurants? So it came up with new ideas, new challenges, and I think we got going. And, I can proudly say that by September, we were breaking even. We did record number deliveries. Our delivery business boomed from maybe 25% to 70%. And in the month of December, I think for the first time, we hit profits operationally in the financial year. Nice. December to March, we were profitable. The best part was we were doing 5 lakh plus orders a month on delivery, plus the dine-in and the takeaway was also thriving. So I think it was about being resilient. It was about adapting to acceptance that, it is going to be omni-channel play going forward. Delivery is going to be a core of the business. Earlier e-commerce was an omni-channel, but now e-commerce had become e-commerce for a long, long time for many, many of us, right? Yeah. So I think putting in that focus into more of digital play and providing the right value experience to the consumers who are largely working from home and getting them food delivered to their doorstep. So things had become very, very good by December, where it was a mix of both delivery and QSR business. So from being a business model which was 1/4 of delivery, now we became a business model which was 50% delivery. So maybe 2/4 had become delivery, and on a permanent basis. And we could see a lot of offshoot in numbers. In a way, we were able to win over many new customers because during the lockdown we were completely operational. So people who had not tried us before got a chance to try us. And I think it's a great price point for delivery as well. I know it's a great price point for dine-in, but again, Momo's at your price point for delivery hits the sweet spot, I think. Absolutely. So good quality food at good price points. And, we've always believed in converting a snack into a meal. So, at Wow Momo, we've looked at converting snack into a meal. So, being able to serve that meal to the consumer. And also we saw new trends coming in. We saw it was no more about family ordering. It became about solo ordering. Every individual
Correct.
in the home was ordering their preferences, right? So a lot of trends changed, and adapting to those trends, trying to cater to every individual of every household. So
Yeah.
I think it taught us a lot, to be honest. It made the business more it made the business more multi-channel, omni-channel, and it also gave us the belief that this is what maybe technology can do, and then adapt to food tech, where you start using equipments which are more delivery friendly. You start ordering equipments that can churn the food faster, getting into food robotics, and that's what I call real food tech. I mean, selling online is not really food tech. It's more of e-commerce, right? So I think a lot of experiments happened around that. We got into automated fryers, we got into robotic fryers, robotic steamers. We got into a tie-up with Cafe Coffee Day, where we were doing shop-in-shop formats inside Cafe Coffee Day. So that was another big difference. You were opening more stores and more visibility on the app by opening up stores inside Cafe Coffee Day. So it was for the first time that the one of the biggest QSR chains, homegrown QSR chain, which is us, got into a tie-up with one of the biggest homegrown coffee chain, which is Cafe Coffee Day. You could see two brands coming together. You could see a collaboration. You could see a collective approach, a collective growth approach happening, which was never seen before in the restaurant sector, right? It's all about competition, competition, and competition.
Yeah.
So you could see a wow more menu inside Cafe Coffee Day, which was never even thought of before, right? Never even imagined before. So a lot of changes happened, and I think then we approached April 2021. We had felt that 2021 would be 2020 WON1 and not 20201. But unfortunately, the tides have really, really turned. I think the second wave has really hit us bad. I think April was tough on most, but May made it more worse. May was more about not work from home, but work for home. Work to save your home, work to save your own friends and relatives, work to save your own employees, ensure everyone is safe. And the entire focus shifted. But what we did see is maximum major thriving on delivery business again. I think delivery business kept us surviving. The good thing was, when the first lockdown happened, we fell by 90%. Business was only 10%, right? It was 1/10. This time we were actually 7 out of 10. So, I mean, major jump in
That's
growth.
incredible to see in just 12 months. Yeah.
Yeah, you could see your business clocking almost 3x on delivery. And when you talk to aggregators like Swiggy, Zomato, their platform has not grown 3x. So, if you're able to grow larger than the platform, touch wood, it was a great job done by the team. I mean, we were able to reinvent ourselves, reinvent our business model, and we were able to move with the curve and bounce back in a more formidable manner. It was still tough because last 2 months have again been in losses. So it's like you take one step forward, you come back by 2 steps. And this second wave is more like a spring effect, if you ask me, because there's going to be more fear factor amongst people. I have lost many of my near and dear ones. My co-founder lost his father because of COVID. So it's been tough. It's been really tough on many people. I mean, one thing we saw in Calcutta was there was acute shortage of beds, and then the initiative that me and my friends began, we called ourselves Entrepreneurs of Calcutta. You will not believe, in 12 days time we were able to set up 300 plus ICU beds in the city. We were able to raise 7 crores through crowdfunding. So we all started working more like a citizen movement for the city, for the country, and focus shifted from business to humanity. And I think what it brought inside was the kind of compassion that you get to see in the country. I think honestly, India is in a good position, and bouncing back again now is because of the citizen movement across cities, across states. So yeah, I'm proud to be an Indian, proud to see where we are right now. But the going is definitely tough. I think the second wave bouncing back will be much more harder and tougher. Like I said, it's like a spring effect. So in the first wave, we moved backwards a little bit, we came back fast. This time we've gone back a lot. And for us to come back, and by coming back, I just don't mean delivery business. I mean the takeaway, the dine-in, the entire experiential component of spending time in the restaurant and coming and having your favorite food. I think that's going to take a lot of time to come back. You will see many of your favorite restaurants shutting down. A lot of jobs have got scattered. People have lost a lot of jobs in the fraternity. I mean, the restaurant sector is one of the largest employment creators, and a lot of jobs have actually gone down.
Yeah.
So it's a very sad state of affairs at a ground level, to be honest. Even we are struggling. Last 2 months have been losses, and just hoping that things change soon. People get vaccinated. the vaccine comes into play. So that's how the journey has been from the first lockdown to the second lockdown. It's been really, really tough for the sector. And honestly, the damage for the second time, I'm not very sure how many of us are still, have the bandwidth and have the, the strength to counter it. I think QSR will still bounce back faster, but I'm really, really worried about the casual and fine dine space.
Yeah, I think, first of all, thanks for that really candid answer. You took us through, personal life, you took us through business, and you gave us some like really incredible insights. I think what we saw as a community at large was incredible over the past couple of months. I just want to pick on two things you said. One was, I think you noticed a very great insight, which is nowadays people are ordering for themselves. So at home with family, right? It was always, what does the family want to eat? But nowadays, if I want to order, I want to order my own thing. How about you just do the same for yourself, right? Because it's super simple, and that's one definite change that we've kind of seen. Now, if you have to take you back to your journey, right? I'm just wondering what happened in St. Xavier's, Kolkata. How did you guys, at the age of 21, yeah, like take me back. I remember my time in college. I wasn't thinking of business plans and essentially kind of taking such a big risk at that age, right? So how did it happen? When was that point that you guys decided, you want to do this? And take me through some of those moments.
Honestly, I think, and this goes out to all youngsters out there, if you only have a business plan and you don't have the aspiration to make it big, you're not going to get anywhere. Trust me, we had no business plan. We just had an aspiration to build a brand. Honestly, coming out of college, the mind is without fear. You haven't yet taken a job, so you don't get into a comfort zone. I was in St. Xavier's College, Calcutta, and being very candid here, I was coming out of a breakup, so I was feeling quite disturbed. I got into depression, and
see, normally people just hit the gym when they have a breakup, so you've done much better than that.
Yeah, I've made people eat momos and tried to look at momo as one of the healthiest form of QSR. After all, it's largely steamed. And trust me, we are coming up with gluten-free momos very soon. So diet momos are going to be there very soon. I mean, imagine what more could you expect, right? Steamed food and that too gluten-free. I mean, that's going to be the healthiest form of snack available. But yeah, in those days back then, it was more about, channelizing your energy into something more productive. Coming out of a breakup, getting into depression, you just felt that you were wasting your life. And somewhere I felt that thing hit me, that what am I doing? I have so much ability, I have so much potential. What am I doing? And I think we had gotten to a level where my friends had to literally come home and teach me at night, before exams, because I could not study alone. And that's when, while studying at night, you would feel hungry, right? So while eating, we would, make Maggi, we would make pasta, we would experiment with the Domino's oregano and put it over sandwiches and parathas. And Binod with the Nepalese, he could make momos. And I think, when he started making those momos, more out of, not really out of a joke, but on a very serious basis, I said, if you want to build a brand, why not do it with food? And, brand building was something that always inspired me. In my school days, I used to literally draw logos of a Nike, of an Adidas, of a Reebok in my textbooks, So I always wanted to have my own brand. That aspiration was there. And what best way to do it rather than doing it from food, because food is something that goes by the word of mouth. Today you like it, you go and tell your friends, they go and tell their friends. So somewhere I felt that, food is one of the best mediums to, build a brand, and word of mouth really plays. You don't require big hoardings, you don't require press ads, you just require people to be served good quality food. And there was this lady in my college, in my school rather, who would come and sell momos. We would call her Momo Auntie, and I would buy one plate and just get one piece. My friends would gobble the rest. So that gave me confidence that, good quality momos can sell. So if people can play with burgers, if people can play with pizzas, why can't we play with momos? I think that's how they set in.
Yeah. So I was wondering, so I was a little curious about that. Now, for example, I grew up in Chennai. At that point, no one ate momos, growing up, right? So was that ever a concern? I'm sure in Calcutta, maybe you said you got momos near your school. In the rest of India, right, there wasn't so much adoption of momos widespread. Was that ever a concern?
Honestly, no. I think we believed in our product. We felt we could be trendsetters. I mean, if someone has not done it and you feel you can do it, I think it gives you more of an advantage. Because A, it's a virgin market, and B, you become trendsetters. You create that trend. Today, if Domino's could teach a roti eating country into eating pizzas, we felt, why can't we Indianize momos and convert, an Indian food, which is part of the hills, part of the Northeast, into a national food. Why can't we Indianize momos and take it to places? And surprisingly, Chennai is one of our most profitable cities. So imagine a city like Chennai where, momo was not heard of before. People now, when they see momos on the road or people who sell momos on the streets, they call it Wow Momo. It's not just become the product, it's become the brand. You go to Cochin, they refer to momo as Wow Momo. People will come and tell you, give me a Wow Momo chicken, or a Wow Momo veg. So I think it's a matter of great pride that you're trendsetter in a particular category. Earlier when I began my journey, when I would approach a mall asking them for a space, they would say, why do we need a momo player? We have a Chinese player who sells momos, right? We had to create a category in QSR. And today, you go to any mall that is there in the country or any new mall coming up, they have a KFC, a Burger King, a Subway, and then they have a Wow Momo allocated, that, we want a Wow Momo there. So we've become a category in the QSR space. And honestly, momo is never a Chinese food. In Chinese, you get dim sums or dumplings, it's not really momos. So I think it was more about setting that trend, giving the consumer what they want, giving them good quality food and making the food famous, making the food fun. I think our strength lied in innovation. I think it's innovation that's made us what we are, converting a normal steam momo to different flavors, but that's nothing like, converting a normal steam momo to a momo burger, to a chocolate momo, to a baked momo gratin, to tandoori momos, to, we have chili momos now, doing heart-shaped chocolate momos on Valentine's Day. You've really made food fun. So I think you have to give the consumer something new. You have to keep them excited. I think that's what we've done. We've played with momos, and trust me, we've actually built a category which is the right category at the right time. Because people are now converting to health, and our industry is all about health, hygiene, happiness. Today kids love momos. You ask a girl who wants to remain slim and trim, she'll prefer having steamed momos than having. Elderly people can consume momos or idlis, when they are moving out. So it's got a very vast TG. It's more of a family product, and it's a food for all times. Today we do amazing business in the airports across cities. At 5 a.m, people are eating steamed momos because early in the morning you either prefer eating an idli or a momo. Right from 5 a.m. to having it for lunch, to having it for evening snack, to having it for dinner. So it's become food for all times and food for everyone. So it's a very vast TG that we've been fortunate enough to create.
Yeah, I was just going to bring up something, but you've kind of answered that already. I was just going to tell you that. So I lived in Calcutta for a year, when I was in my early 20s. And I think I visited Forum Mall or something where I was just looking for a meal for about $200 or something. And I'd come across Wow Momo. I hadn't eaten Wow Momo up until that point. And I looked at the menu and I got a momo and a tukpa for about 200 rupees. And, I was like, that was the first time I came across the brand. I was going to ask you about the ideal consumer you had in mind while you started out. But I think you kind of told us that it's not just, a college going kid. It could be anybody. And is that what you're seeing as well? Is it people of all ages kind of eating momos at all times?
Absolutely. And like I said, with this pandemic coming in, people working from home, being more, confined to their own homes, it's become a lot about solo ordering. Today, even a kid has his preference, even a grandfather has his preference, and so does the head of the family, the dad, or the mom. So, I think we have been able to create that product which is appealing to all age groups. And I think it's a very advantageous position to be in, because then you cater to the family, you cater to friends, you actually become a part of the communities of people. You become a part of their social lives, whether it's a birthday party or an anniversary or a celebration or, hanging out with friends. Or, I think we did amazing transaction on the day there was this friends reunion, right from 12 in the afternoon, 12:30 in the afternoon till late at night, so, people getting glued to watching their Netflix or Amazon Prime and, grabbing onto momos or grabbing onto their favorite dish, can be a Domino's, can be a KFC, whatever it is, I think you have the market in India to appeal to every kind of TG. And you just have to, find the right balance between catering to what you have to and to whom you have to, and giving them, their needs according to their preferences. The great thing about Wow Momos, if you prefer something spicy, you have pan-fried momos, you have chili momos. If you prefer something healthy, you have steam momos. If you prefer something wealthy, we don't call it unhealthy, but if you call something like a wealthy food, you have fried momos. For a dessert, you have a chocolate momo, you have a momo burger. So there are huge options. It's about making food fun. It's about playing with the product.
Right. And so this is, it's a fascinating point. Like your menu is so vast. You have steam momos, typical, pan fried, typical, maybe fried also. But then you guys have chocolate momos like Sizzlers, the Momo Burger. How did you guys come across these innovations? And I mean, I love that how you're talking about kind of having fun with it. Is that part of the strategy where you're just trying to be a fun brand, or like how do you guys come up with, yeah, I'm going to mix these two things together and put it out to the market, like chocolate momos, or I think chocolate spring rolls also. I saw a photo on your Instagram. So there's all kinds of innovations in general. How do you guys come up with it?
Yeah, I think it's a lot to do with stepping into the shoes of the consumer and asking yourself, what does the customer want? See, the customer wants to be excited. The customer wants to be having in a position where they are convenient, right? The consumer wants convenience. The consumer wants excitement. The consumer wants something new. Once they start trusting your basic product, which is the steam momos, and they start trusting on the fact that you're a brand that loves to innovate, they don't mind coming and experimenting. Obviously, you don't succeed all the time. I mean, there have been a lot of experiments that have also been a failure for us. I mean, we did mango momos one, which was a huge disappointment, right? So I think it's all about trial and error. Being a first generation entrepreneur, and the way the youth appeals to the country today. It's a lot about going out there and expressing yourself. As a brand, we are very expressive. We believe that we are the power of youth. We are young. We are vibrant. Today I was not a brand from America, opening up my first store and having a 4-kilometer queue, right? I was an Indian homegrown brand. No one knew about me, right? So I had to create my own attention. I had to roll eyeballs. If anyone is walking on the street, I had to make him shift left or right and look at my signage, look at that bright yellow store, come into the store, try the product. We believed in the product. We knew कि कोई एक बार हमारा momo खाएगा, they'll become ours forever. But I think the entire menu engineering, menu curation is about making food fun. It's about innovating, keeping the innovation going. Doing stuff like whether it's playing with sauces or whether it's playing with your main product. I think it's about providing that wowness to the consumer, that every time he eats a momo, he says wow.
Yeah.
And trust me, out of 10 times, 8 times we are successful in doing it. Maybe a couple of times we fail. We have customers who are disappointed, and it's our duty, it's our core to listen to them and maybe try and make changes in the menu and or maybe satisfy them to the best possible ability. And there's huge scope for improvement. When you are building a homegrown brand, it's not easy. I mean, India is a country where you can't please everyone. I mean, every city is like a country in a country. I mean, it's so diverse yet so united. Tastes vary, right? If you go to south of India, the taste is very different. North of India, it's very different. So you have to curate your menu accordingly. You have to create that right trend as to what you want consumers to eat. There are it's like in many cases pizza was an acquired taste, right? Wine is an acquired taste. So in many cases you also have to get that acquired taste of momo setting into people's palate and cater to them accordingly to make them feel satisfied.
Yeah, I mean that's fascinating to hear. You've also spoken about the signage, the bright yellow wow momo logo. Was that like almost like a project where you and your co-founder got together and did various sketches, or did you maybe hire a designer to kind of do it? How did you guys come up with wow momo? And
so my brother's into advertising, right? And before calling it wow, we were calling it yo momo, but we felt there was already a brand called Yo China, so it would be a conflict. So then I said, if I want someone to eat my product, I want him to say wow, and that's how the name wow momo came in. My brother did advertising, so the entire font of wow and the momo came from him. He helped us to design it. However, I got a freelance designer in Calcutta to do it for me. I barely must have paid him some 3,000 rupees in those days to design my logo for me. But thankful to him, grateful to him, still in touch with him. And I mean that's how. And choosing the color yellow was because we wanted it to be bright, we wanted it to be eye catching. And largely, if you do an experiment in the food space, colors like yellow and red really, make you feel appealing. It takes up the hunger pangs. So, I mean, I just felt they were bright, attractive colors to draw attention, draw eyeballs, and a lot could be done with colors, with positioning, and that's how we close upon the logo.
Yeah, that's a great story. I kind of asked you that because you spoke about how you used to have the Nike swoosh and the Adidas. I think one of the famous story was the Nike swoosh as well. Was it was just given to somebody, and she came up with it, and now it's one of the most iconic signs in the world.
Yeah.
Now, just kind of moving on, I think, you've given us great insight already. Can you just tell us, you pivoted to delivery massively in the last 12 months, right? Initially, you spoke about some of the challenges. How are you going to kind of retain the freshness? Or how are you going to make sure that it's a good product to consume at home? How did you kind of overcome those challenges and some of the
I think we are
learnings along
still
the way?
overcoming those challenges, to be honest. As the business is evolving, we are still overcoming those challenges. I think we've firstly changed the entire packaging. We've moved from foil packaging to a packaging which is more friendly to keeping momos warm at the same time keeping them very intact. See, what happens is when you work with aggregators, to do your last mile delivery, the way they carry the food is not in your control. So you have to make the packaging also very hardy, because ultimately the customer, when he gets food, is getting food from Wow Momo. What happens, many a time when these riders they ride, they're in a rush, the food shakes, the sauce shakes, and there's a lot of spillage that happens, right? So we've been working a lot towards, getting that fresh packaging which can keep the momos compact, because momo is a very delicate product. It can break open very fast. It's really very delicate. So working on aspects to keep the product intact, to keep the shape intact, to keep the product warm, and also trying to keep it hardy, so that no matter how rash the delivery rider can be, at least you can try and do your bit to save the product. And there are many times when people get broken momos, which is a big concern still. Out of 5 pieces, maybe 1 piece is a bit broken, and it happens in transit. It's not intentional. But that's how momo as a product is. It's very delicate. And if you see our momos has a lot of stuffing inside, a lot of filling inside, right? It's not very little stuffing. So it has a lot of weight to it. So and the skin is very thin. So I think that is what is a very, very difficult product, and that's why I say it's not a very delivery friendly product. But we've done our stuff. Now we are creating a packaging which has dividers into it, so all 5 pieces can be divided separately, so that chances of breaking or the momo sticking or spilling over one another is less. So trying to do, I think it's a learning, it's a journey. The way you see evolution of brands like KFC, McDonald's, Domino's, they've evolved their packaging over years and years of experiment, trial and error. I think it's going to be the same for us. It's just that they've been international brands. They've done it for over 50 years in the US and other countries. And we, being a homegrown brand, our first time doing it in India, and maybe by the time we go to the US, we'll be more tried and tested kind of a model.
I like the confidence, with which you said that by the time you go to US, not if you go to US. That's great. And that leads me to my next question, which is the future, right? I just kind of want to understand how many outlets you have live today. And I know you guys got funded by Tiger Global in 2019, lots of other funding as well. I think you guys were the first time they backed the QSR chain. So when you get recognition like that by big investors, how did it make you feel? And what's the path ahead for Wow Momo from here?
So to be very honest, I think we currently have more than 350 plus stores, out of which 220 are currently live because of the pandemic. Many stores in airports, in malls, and railway stations are shut, because, you're not allowed to open. But last year, when we went into the lockdown, we had 343 stores, and then we had to shut 41 stores post-lockdown, because those were stores that were not making business sense. And we also ended up opening 66 more new stores. So we were in a way back to square one, and today we sit with more than 350 stores of both our brands, which is Wow Momo and Wow China. So we have another brand, Wow China, which is the Chinese QSR brand. And I'm very excited about that model, because, no one has really played with Indian Chinese food and made it on the go. You have a mainland China, which is into fine dine, but no one has really played with Chinese cuisine and made it a national brand. Today you have a Burkos in Delhi, you have a Beijing Bites in Bangalore, right, but you don't really have a national brand as such, right? So I think we see a huge space there. And, for us, Wow China already has 50 plus stores. So we're very excited about the journey of Wow China also. Honestly speaking, we're looking at 1,000 plus stores in the country. We feel that, we have not really cracked the art of selling momos, but we've cracked the art of, serving QSR in the country, quick service restaurant food in the country. I think I cannot think of any other homegrown QSR chain which has all company-owned, company-operated stores, and has been profitable over years, and has been growing at a 50% CAGR, which we have, thankfully, by God's grace. So I think we've somewhere cracked the code. The way you say, this is decoding. So we cracked the code. For us, it's more about building both the brands, Wow Momo, Wow China, We're also entering into the FMCG space. We're coming up with instant momos. So we're going to have a concept called Wow Momo Instant, where you have frozen momos kept in your house. So, if you're hungry, you're working from home, you're unable to get the time to even go out there and deliver from a Swiggy or a Zomato, or you have guests who just come in and you have to serve them food really super fast within 5 minutes. So instant momos are momos in a minute. You can literally steam 5 pieces of momo in a minute. And the product has come out really, really amazing with the Wow Momo sauce. So I think instant momos is going to be the next game changer. Apart from that, we're also looking at, because delivery business has really thrived over the last 1 year, and we feel that, the sentiments of people are going to be more in-house in the next 1 or 2 years. We might also look at a platform play kind of a concept where we might, think of maybe getting into other cuisines and, maybe having a house of brands like a Wow Momo, Wow China, and maybe something to do with maybe a pizza or a burger or a fried chicken or ice cream or whatever. So we are evaluating, we're experimenting, we're open to experimenting. But at the moment, I think we are focused on growing both our in-house brand, which is Wow Momo, Wow China. And we are very, very excited about entering into the FMCG space where we have instant momos, which can be kept in your deep freezer and you can just take it out, microwave it and have it in a minute. It's going to be juicy. It's going to be in different flavors, and I'm very, very kicked about the launch. We're launching on the 10th of June in Big Basket, so barely a week from now. So very excited.
Yeah, I can't wait to try that out. 10th of June is actually my mom's birthday, so we're not going to do anything special. But I think I'm going to order some of those instant momos and try them out.
I'll have them sent as a birthday gift for her. You don't have to order them. I love to have her. So, I think the word wow and mom, if you reverse wow, it's mom. For me, my mom has been my most important factor in my life, right? So yeah, it'll be for auntie from my side.
That's great to hear. Now, just what words of advice do you have for entrepreneurs? You started super early, and it's been, I think, 13 years. You're still super young. But for entrepreneurs, in college or right after, what words of advice do you have for them?
I think be hungry, be foolish. By being hungry, I mean consume a lot of momos. Just joking, but be hungry, be foolish. I think go out there and think of what really satisfies you. And I mean, you have to really enjoy what you want to do. So don't just jump into anything. Get into something that you really enjoy doing. Believe in your idea, but be practical about it. Because more than the idea, it's about the ideation, about the implementation. It's not just the idea at the end of the day. It's about how you implement the idea, how you actually make logistics work, how you make operations work, how you make the product work. So be very realistic about your idea. There are a lot of amazing ideas, but they can't be converted into proper business opportunities. So your idea should be something which can be converted into a business model, which can generate revenue and enable you to create jobs, enable you to add value to yourself, to the economy. So yeah, I think don't be very scared. I think if you want to be an entrepreneur, jump into it the sooner the better, because once you get into the comfort of a highly paid cushion job, it's very difficult to let go of that comfort and jump into entrepreneurship. I have a lot of respect for people who actually give up their job and get into entrepreneurship. Trust me, if I would have been in their place and I had to take that call, I would have been not thinking twice but thinking 100 times. Because I came out of college, I did not have the fear of taking care of my own livelihood. Parents were supporting me till college, so I could give it that shot. Yes, I had very less funding. My dad was going through a very bad phase in his business at that point of time. So, even for me, that 30,000 that I borrowed from my parents was a lot of money then. But I personally believe that believe in yourself, believe in your idea, but don't become too emotional towards it. Obviously, speak about it to a lot of people, but be a good listener. Many times, we are very good speakers, but we're not very good listeners. Be a very good listener, and maybe you never know. Whatever someone might say, if it makes sense to you, adapt it. If it doesn't make sense to you, forget it. But give a very rational thinking to everything which is heard about that idea from valid people. People who've been there, done that, people you consider to have a good IQ or idea about business. But however, don't get demotivated, don't get discouraged. When I got into the momo business, a lot of my dad's friends and relatives literally ridiculed my dad, saying, "Yaar, tera beta momo bechega, he'll be a momo wala." Today in our country, if a chai wala can be a prime minister, imagine what a momo wala can do. So, it's Nothing is small. Trust me, guys. When I began Wow Momo, I would wake up at 5:30 in the morning, take my bicycle, go buy the vegetables, raw materials. Momos were made in my home kitchen. Wear the Wow Momo T-shirt. Take a tray and go and serve to every customer. Do sampling. Clean the dustbin, and I've learned a lot. Operationally, I've learned so much that today I know the kind of pain my team goes through. Right. So I think it's about not just talking, but it's about being important as an entrepreneur. So you need to be involved. You need to exactly know how to find your way. And trust me, once you're on the right path and you're honest and you're diligent, doors will start opening up on its own. I mean, I believe a lot in destiny, but more than believing in destiny, I believe in creating destiny. You know. So creating destiny is a very very important thing. Destiny also has to be created by work. So luck also needs to work for luck to happen. So that's what I believe in life.
I think those are some beautiful. I'm sure there'll be a lot to take away for all the budding entrepreneurs. Before we let you go, we just have a small little rapid fire to kind of get to know you better. You have already given us a lot about your life, so you've been one of our most candid guests. But we can't let you go kind of before doing the rapid fire with us. So should we? Can we go? Can we get started?
Sure.
Your favorite item on your menu?
The chicken and cheese momos.
All right. How often do you order from outside yourself?
From Wow Momo?
Just generally, like how often do you order food?
Very often. I think I am one of the big fans of aggregator business like Swiggy, Zomato, because they make so many options available to you.
Yeah.
So I'm a very often consumer of both Swiggy, Zomato platforms, and ordering from my favorite restaurants, whether it's food, whether it's desserts, very very often.
Awesome. Your favorite cuisine? Do you have one? I mean, it might be kind of obvious, but do you have a favorite cuisine to eat?
I prefer Indian a lot. I also prefer Chinese. So it's difficult to choose between both of them, but both are my hero cuisines.
All right. Do you have a favorite brand? Not necessarily a food brand, but since you mentioned you used to use like those brands back in the day and their logos, do you have a favorite brand?
See, I'm a very very big fan of what a Domino's has done. I'm a very big fan of what McDonald's has done. If you want to talk in the food space, if you don't want to talk of the non-food space, I'm a very very big fan of Uniqlo. I only wear Uniqlo, so largely wear Uniqlo, and I think they've really matched style with comfort, with fit. They've given the consumer, the right kind of product with the right kind of brand image. So really admire the way they've created and built their brand. A very very big fan of Elon Musk. So yeah, I mean Elon Musk himself is a brand.
Yeah. How do you de-stress?
For me, de-stressing is more about spending a lot of time with friends. I think my friends have been my biggest de-stressors. I am very blessed to have some great set of friends. Spending time with them, chilling with them, watching Netflix. I have a pet dog called Elsa now, so playing with her, and spending a lot of family time, traveling a lot. I love traveling. So yeah, it's a mix of things, a bunch of things. At this stage, and I think handling your stress is the biggest asset.
Yeah.
And I think for me, if I have to choose one, it's friends. I think they're one of my biggest stress busters.
Awesome. I read somewhere that you used to be a big fan of cricket. You might still be. Do you have a favorite cricketer?
Was and it will always be Sachin Tendulkar. I think have been a big fan of the little master, and he's been one of my idols. Could not be a cricketer like him, but have learned hard work, diligence, patience, determination from him. So yeah.
So in Calcutta, one of those who preferred Sachin to Ganguly, and was that hard?
Not at all. Yeah, I think if you go to Eden Gardens in Calcutta, when both used to bat, when Dada would come on strike, the entire crowd would say, "Dada, give a single and let Sachin come and bat." So that's the kind of fan following Sachin had. But huge respect for Saurav Ganguly. I think he's been an amazing leader. I have learned a lot about leadership from him.
All right.
A fighter.
Do you have a favorite movie or a show that maybe you're watching now?
Now I've been watching this movie, this show called Serpent, which is on Netflix, which is just the latest one. I had also liked watching this show called. It was about a U.S. president who was
House of Cards, maybe, or
No. It was about a US president who became president by chance because the entire Senate was blasted. Forgetting the name.
Yeah. I think I've seen one Designated Survivor.
Then there's Survivor. Yeah. Then there's Survivor. Then I've obviously, everyone is a fan of Friends. I've been one of the latest to watch Friends. I mean, I started watching Friends at the age of 31, 32. So it's just been 1 or 2 years that I've been watching Friends a lot. And yeah, I mean, lots to choose from. Love watching a lot of documentaries, documentaries on sportsmen, documentaries on celebrities, on businessmen, whether it's a Bill Gates, or whether it's something about Elon Musk, or whether it's something about reading about Phil Knight's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you have a startup or a startup to watch out for in India?
So yeah, I have started in doing a small bit of angel investment myself. So a lot of startups whom I feel are really thriving. There's this fintech company called Grip Investment, where even I've invested. I think doing a fabulous job. There's this shoe making company called Neiman's, which is from Hyderabad but selling online now. So they're doing a fabulous job. There's this brand called Peabody, which is more about women hygiene care, and more about products for women and for hygiene, etc. There is this brand called Rare Planet, which I've funded, which is more about online gifting space. So a lot of these startups are doing a fabulous job, and
Awesome.
yeah, I really admire them and quite excited to look at their growth trajectory going forward.
All right, final two. A favorite holiday destination?
A favorite holiday destination for me was I've taken very few holidays. I've been largely a workaholic. But if where I have gone was the latest one. Where I had gone was this amazing resort in Kurseong by the Taj. It's called Taj Chia Kutir. But honestly speaking, if I was given an option, I really look forward to going to London and spending time there, walking the roads of London. And I think the climate there is amazing for strolls, for walks. So I think London, or England, rather UK, is going to be my place to be for holidays.
Do you have a book that maybe inspired you or changed your life?
Never read a book in my life except for the book on Sachin Tendulkar. So yeah, I just started reading a lot about Phil Knight's, the Nike book. Apart from that, not really read a book.
Okay, final one is one innovation you decided not to go ahead with at Wow Momo, something you drew up, you almost did it, and then you pulled the plug. Was there one innovation like that?
There was the Pizzeria Momo, which we were about to launch, but then we took a backseat. I am quite confident we will do it in future, in time to come. The product came out very well, but it involved a lot of logistical hassle. It involved a lot of equipments that the store size was not capable of, installing. So it came with a lot of baggage, and we said, let's keep it on hold for the time being. That's the quickest that I could think of. We've tried biryani momos also, which did not work. Although we didn't launch it in the market, I'm happy we did not. Maybe someday we will. Maybe when the product is more better and my R&D team, including Vinod and myself, do a better job.
Yeah. And finally, do you have any words of your, association with Urban Piper and how that kind of partnership has been?
Amazing. It's made business more profitable. It's reduced cancellations. It's made the business hassle-free. It's honestly, it's given us much more stronger controls with bare minimum interfaces. I think it's been better utilization of resources. Optimization of resources, easier for the finance team, easier for the ops team. It's made life easy, to be honest. Menu integrations, customizing menus city-wise, making changes, giving you inventory management, ensuring that the customer is not rejected any order, because if the order completely diminishes, then Urban Piper itself puts it off through the AI mechanism. So I think it's made life very easy for the guys at the store level, and very happy to be a part of this association, because I think it's very useful for the restaurant interface. I mean, for the restaurant fraternity. And I think most of the brands are using it, and you guys are doing a great job. So kudos to you guys. I think being able to crack one of the pain points for the restaurant fraternity, I mean, a job well done. Our industry comes with a lot of challenges. It's not an easy industry. So, being partners to this industry is a tough one. And I'm sure my team must be, really pushing your tech team a lot at times and making life hell for them. But I think we've been great partners.
One of the great things of being in marketing is I'm not on the receiving end of that very often. Well, thank you, Mr. Sagar Daryani, for this awesome, fun-filled, candid conversation. Great insights about your journey, about your company, and you as a person. Thank you for being part of this episode of Decode. And yeah, we hope you enjoy this episode when it comes out.
Thank you, Kaushal. Thank you so much for having me here.
If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and leave a comment below, and subscribe to stay updated with the latest in the food tech industry with Urban Python.